influencers of district leaders' decisions is the best way to support them as a coach. We're going to identify some action steps and tactics, and you can begin with this very document to start crafting the plan. Because there's like template-y stuff inside. You can write pieces in and draw things in. Some things to remember. I'll just have these up here. Most folks here know these already. But this is basically how partners are different than other orgs. Right. We're not just about transactions. The dollar decision makers are often not the people who we're coaching. Right? And so that makes things really different in how you're doing the work, particularly in the value proposition conversations. You have to have that conversation with multiple people within these organizations. We are expecting the approach to be the core content, right? There's no difference with that. Clearly, our different service models have different value propositions, which means that they have varying ability to meet the client's needs. That's a really important thing to know. All of our less intensive models are angling toward the intensive. The question is, who's doing the intensive? It doesn't have to be us, but somebody has got to be working with schools to do the things we know they need to do. Right? And this last one is pretty important, and it's about the fact that there's a general reality for every district leader of a particular type, regardless of what districts they serve. And then there's a specific reality about their current context in the current time, and the current political conditions and their current resource base. You can begin the work in the general. This is an area soup who has 28 schools responsible for them. And there's a bunch of realities that's true about every leader for whom that's the case. But very quickly, you have to shift from the general to the specific, right? And your ability to do that by knowing their schools, their context, their influencers will determine the strength of the relationship and the sustainability over time. Right? So you can start general, but if you stay general, your utility to them will lessen over time.
You want to unpack that a little bit about the how to on that?
Yeah, we get at it, yeah, with some examples going forward. Right, so quickly, jot a few things. If we're gonna, since we have to truncate some time, we're not gonna do the exercise pieces. You can do them on your time. Basically, think about what's different versus what's the same related to school leaders and district leaders. We'll need to do this now, but in one instance, school leaders is just one school, and district leaders are multiple schools, and that has consequences for all the things you're talking about because they have to multiply what you're talking about in terms of resource by the number of schools they're responsible for, or time by the number of schools they're responsible for. And so, that's one key, but there's some others. Who has some other ideas about what's different between school leaders and district leaders?
The district leaders, I would call them board proximate, whereas school leaders, I would call them board distant. And so that has a whole bunch of complexities to it that the school leaders might not be feeling anywhere near as much.
Right. And in the most dysfunctional districts, the principals are board proximate.
Yeah, that's true. The most dysfunctional, that's true.
Right? I mean, the policy body is in running around district leadership, going right to building. And that's a huge problem when it happens, but it happens. What else? One other difference between the two.
How you experience the stakeholder groups and how they leverage their influence, right? So stakeholder groups for schools look one way, very similar to what the district has, but the drivers that they push along.
Right. Yeah. We'll do the exercise related to that. Yeah. Right. When I say influencers, it's largely around the stakeholders. But some stakeholders have no influence, so they wouldn't appear on the leader's influence grid. Right. And others do, so they would appear. There's a bunch of stuff that's the same. Right. Yeah. And we don't have to talk through these in any kind of detail. I'm sorry, I'm gonna see if this is Jose Monzo's phone. He's probably telling me if our check's ready.
He's like, you're talking about district leaders.
Exactly.
Brother
Brother is psychic. He's one of the ones who's gonna do the session with us. So we won't go through that. So how to start strong with district leaders? 3 steps. First, know their needs. Second, know their influencers. And third, know them as people. Right? Know their assets, what it is that inspires them, what it is they're very good at. There is no leader on the planet that doesn't want more opportunities to do what they're good at. Present company included. Right? So your ability to support their getting to the stuff that they're great at is another huge way of helping them be successful.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of our leaders, is there someone on this grid you do not know who they are? Just tell me which picture it is, and I can tell you.
The upper left hand.
Upper left?
Yeah.
Tell me
I don't remember his name, but he's in New York, right? He's in New York now.
No,
No,
that's your super. No, that's your super. Upper left?
The new one?
The top, the first?
Yeah,
The first picture?
first picture.
Yes. That's
Oh.
Jara.
Jar. We were talking about him earlier. Jar.
Okay, that's the guy who just came in.
Yeah,
3
that's
years-
right.
3 years and 1
County,
year.
less than a year, about a year now. Clark County Super. Transplant from Florida.
Okay.
Who else? You don't know.
In the blue, in the middle.
Blue in
Cheryl
the,
Jordan.
oh, the one on the end? Yeah.
No, in the middle.
The blue jacket.
Oh, blue jacket in the middle. Oh, everybody know who she is?
Cheryl Jordan, she's a superintendent of Washington.
Who else? Anyone else? Don't.
To the right of her.
Oh.
Check her through.
Yes.
Oakland, right?
No, it's not Oakland's.
Oakland's
On the other side of the glasses. And we're gonna spend a lot of time talking about Kyle, because she's the example I use.
I mean, I don't know who any of these people are, so I'm except bottom left, so we can talk about them all.
That's Dr.
Right.
Brianna Scott, she's our newest partner in Emeryville. She's a
Oh,
super.
she's
She's
And she's
Oh.
wonderful. Wonderful. She's gonna be a delight. She's like a local Earl Watkins.
Nice.
That's how amazing she's gonna be. Jose Manzo, who was just calling, Oak Grove superintendent. He was with us in Allen Rock. He was the superintendent in Allen Rock that we did the work for. He brought us to Oak Grove with him. Right. Dr. Vince Matthews, San Francisco Unified, was prior superintendent or state administrator in Oakland Unified. Homegrown, he shares that with Kyla, who's Oakland superintendent, homegrown, grew up, went to Oakland schools. He grew up with the San Francisco schools. So part of the narrative of the Bay Area supers is that they're now homegrown, leading the systems that they were part of, and so have a deeper understanding of them than most folks would. Dr. Bill Hyde, Philadelphia super. We worked together with William and I in Prince George's County, Maryland. And the others, and Matt Duffy, West Country Cluster.
Who's the woman right now?
Former, she was with us, right? Former. She wasn't?
Nope. What district's missing? These are all districts we have partnerships with.
San Bruno?
Yes.
The interim?
Yes. No, not San Bruno. No, Peaks. No, that's not.
No, that must be San.
That is San Bruno.
That must be
Right,
San
right.
Bruno.
She's the interim San Bruno, the associate super. Right. We don't know if she'll end up with the job. But they haven't named anybody except for her going forward. So she's the one we're negotiating our agreements with and all the pieces going forward. So knowing their needs, the first step. The board chair talked about 3 reasons why districts contract, while anybody contracts for contractors, right? They are either seeking knowledge, expertise, which is knowledge, how to do something they don't know how to do. They're seeking experience, right? Which is kind of like how to do what they know how to do, but do it in a best practices way so that they can be efficient and effective in making it happen. And last, seeking execution. Help doing what they have to do. Right? Those are really the main ways anybody contracts with anybody inside these systems. Right? knowledge, skill, resources, right? Extra hands to make some stuff happen.
Can I ask a question without sort of an example?
Yeah.
Like potentially a district saying, we have no idea where to begin seeking expertise,
Right.
seeking experience. We know we want to build ILTs, but we
Not
don't
know
know totally
how.
sure how. We have ILTs, but we can't figure out how to get them higher functioning.
Absolutely. You can build it. Those are all great examples. Right. Or we have 3 really good IoT network facilitators. We need 7.
Mhm.
Right. So can you come and do these 3 while we do the other 3? In fact, that's a great key example. All right. Any questions about teams?
So maybe more than one.
Clearly, or some combination of them all. The places where we work, remember, we're in the bottom tail of the distribution.
Right.
So they need all these things, but whether the leader is contracting for them is a whole nother question.
Right.
So if they're contracting for this and all you're doing is this, you're gonna have a hard time getting renewed.
Yeah.
Right? Because you're like, oh, well, you get this outcome and this outcome and this outcome, and they'll say none of those are on you. Right. Right. What we're responsible to for the board are these things. Right. So you got to get what you're accountable for done, but their needs are often far more than that. You have to help meet some of those others.
It sort of goes to Cynthia's point about the DTR stuff. Often what they're hiring us for is seeking execution at their schools
That's right.
when there are things that they need there, but either they haven't recognized them or it's not politically viable to like spend the
To
money
talk
on
about them.
themselves. And so they won't either to talk about them or spend on them.
So we're not going to do the exercise, this one, but basically I wanted you to think about a district leader. Actually, do identify in your mind, or even write, there's space to write it on the next page, I think, a district leader who you're going to use as an example for the building of the team, of the plan, right? So the main thing to understand is if you're contracting already, you have an MOU, you all have MOUs for your partnerships. Ask yourself the question around expertise. What expertise are they looking for you to deliver via this MOU, right? How does that match or not match with the competencies of the people on your team? Is it fully overlapped? Is there some not so overlap? How important is the overlap in skill, in your team skills, that's not overlapping with what they're asking for, what they need? If something's really important, you got to figure out a way to, pull those together and make it something that they know they need. All right. How important is the stuff that's overlapped in needs that don't match to your team skills? And what are you going to do to provide to your team? How are you going to import it, partner for it, reach out to PDS, right? So a team, sort of skill need matrix is a really good way to kind of map out and to begin to developing a plan on how to better support the needs of the client. Second one is around expertise. What experience does your client value? Now understand that may differ from what you're contracted for. In fact, I'll pretty much put a stake in the ground and say it almost will always differ from what your client's contracting for.
Unless you have an experienced super like an Earl,
Right.
who's putting us into the work.
Right.
And
And
he's
fitting
really
us right into a
self-aware.
spot that they
Exactly.
right. But that's very rare.
Yeah.
Right. And so what experience do they really value? What is the collective and individual experience of your team against the thing that they value? What gaps are there? How are you going to close them? And remember too, leaders who are in hierarchy tend to react pretty negatively to the expertise stance. Certainly without the permission to provide it. So the worst you can do is come in a group session.
Yeah.
It's often what happens with leaders and to brag so big, oh my God. But this mistake happens a lot in a meeting with their team that you're facilitating something and a knowledge gap comes up and you slip into expertise stance. Right? I mean, it's demeaning to the leader. It's
Yeah.
disrespectful. They come off as feeling like, oh my God, you're lecturing in front of my direct reports. You will not be invited back to that team. Trust me, if you pull that one. So understanding what experience are they really looking for? How are you chartered to deliver that experience to them? Where there are gaps, how are you sort of going to meet those gaps? Now remember, all our team members are less experienced in terms of time on the ground than the team, most of them, than the folks we're working with. So the experience they're looking for is probably going to be more like the execution of the approach and the knowledge of best practices around doing that. And so they'll be more than happy to hear, well, in so-and-so district, when they tried it this way, here are some things that they had to take into account, as opposed to circumventing that language framing and then going, this is what you gotta do. See what I'm saying? Very different posture and essentially stance. Same stances that we have for everybody else, but deployed slightly differently because of the pressures that the leaders are under.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I think there's an aspiration to be a learning leader, a visibly learning leader, and to cultivate that type of a culture within district hierarchy. But a combination of the day-to-day pressure, the sort of loose or underdeveloped relational trust and relationships and knowledge of each other, and the constant political forces make it very difficult to drop the posturing around expertise. And it's like saying the emperor has no clothes and later to do that one. Yeah. It's
With more mature partnerships,
Yeah.
you have that
Yeah,
training.
you've built
They
that,
introduce you as their coach.
right?
They when they don't know something, they say, Derek, have you experienced this? Right, I mean, literally in front of their team, but early in a partnership, almost never. Except for some few examples, like John. John was always a learner in the work. He's the person we supported in Philly. Through our partner. He was
Right.
always asking questions, exposing his gaps, wanting to get those filled, even when his team members are around. So he's the exception. He is a learning leader in that kind of mental model. But the vast majority of them, they have too many external pressures to show that kind of initial vulnerability.
Derek,
Yeah.
can I ask a question about how you assess
Yeah.
these things?
Yeah, we kind of get to that. So, couple of ways. You can start to assess it in your coaching relationship, right? If you're going to charter your coaching relationship, say, hey, our contract says these things, but I know your needs are going to be broader than just because we're one of 90 contractors, whatever the number is. So we've been, this is one I use all the time. We've been talking a lot about your schools. Let's talk about you now. What are your needs? Right? What would be successful in this partnership with you? Right? They typically default to my school's getting better. Like, I got this. What's going to make you better? And what role do you want us to play? Right? Half the time what they say isn't right, but opening the conversation so that you can get, sort of row seat to the right thing is the way to go. We were going to do an exercise here, but we don't have time. Last thing they ask for, and they contract for is execution. And most of our districts have execution at the center of what they're expecting us to do. Which is why they get a little squirrely when 3 and 4 and 5 meetings go and they don't see things happening. Right? Because we're building a relationship and we know that's going slow to go fast. But they've actually hired to start seeing some things, and they're like, why aren't grade levels XYZ or fear of actioning or whatever, right? Right, and they're right. Their pressures are different, right? So be honest about that. Be transparent about it. Know that their pace of things aren't always going to match what we know are the right paces for the work to be more sustainable, and have the conversation, transparently. So, to what degree does this leader value execution? Most of them will be high on our metric, right? What can your team collectively, individually offer by way of support to execution? Right. What gaps are there? Same kind of questions.
When we first started working with Kim and Val Creek, this was I mean, through the roof. And so, and sometimes our meetings would go so long that in her head, she would actually change the deliverables for the meeting. So you agreed going in when you did the design work and planning, what the outcomes of the meeting would be. And then she would get another thought in the middle of the meeting and say, I want this, right? And so we literally had to do was sit down and map out, okay, here's what we're going to do for the year. Here are the outcomes that we're looking for from this set of meetings. And then we would revisit that and change them just so that we would be really, really clear because it could get squirreled real fast.
And you can
She's
also,
been pressed on the
it's an
whole
additive,
time.
yeah, it's an additive, they're in a living additive reality.
Yep.
And so you have to say, you know what, if you really want me to, I had this exact conversation with Kyla in Oakland. If you really want me to take this on, what comes off the plate? What's no longer high
Right.
priority?
Right.
And their initial reaction is always, everything is high priority.
Right.
Well, you know, you only have so much time or so much days. So let's talk about those. Let's put them on a grid, right? Maybe not now for this new thing, because we're a quarter in on this thing we just started already. Let's see if we can get that one done. Because the other thing they really need from you is coherence and consistency, because their lives are chaotic, right? And so you can be, and actually we hear from in our client satisfaction data all the time. My SIP is the person who keeps us XYZ in 1, 2, 3, right? That's a huge value that we provide to them. Coherence, consistency, persistence around a common set of goals, a common set of strategies and tactics. So that all these arrows that fly in, and a teacher needs this, and a parent needs this, and my, principal supervisor is asking for this, and we're like, where are we on our theory of action? Does this fit? What we've agreed is the scope for the year, and if it doesn't, then it needs to be added. What comes off? Because there's only so many hours in the day. So that kind of mental model is really important, and it's key to high quality execution, right? Because otherwise, you're adding shit all the time. You're never going to get most of it done, and we're modeling and acting in a way that we're there to kind of circumvent.
Right.
I was just resonating. It's this exact thing that happened to Toko and I with Stella and Dom, where she was, every time, and Toko shared this, he would come into a meeting and it was becoming, here's the list of things you need to get Dom to do this week. And, it was this website and the science fair and the thing and, the music classes that the board had brought up. And it was very, very reactive. And so we started starting every meeting, revisiting the 3 capacity growth areas for him from the MOU, updating on progress, describing some of the challenges, and then giving her that sort of channeled her to push on what was important to her and her values on each of those areas. And some of the things started coming into those. And there still was stuff beyond that, but it was really we realized we had to go to that because we started. We're executors, and so it was okay. Get the website tuned up. Cool. We spent the 1-to-1 getting the website tuned up. Okay, the next week work on the science thing, and working on the science thing, and suddenly you're not actually moving the needle on the things that
we are not partners in school minutia.
Right.
Right. That's not what we do. Right. Now we want to establish value. Right. And sometimes you have to do the thing that they have urgency around at the moment to be a real team player. But if all you're doing are those things, they may as well hire a guy Friday for that stuff. They don't need you. You have training, specialized training to do something really powerful and specific. Got to get to it. So on the next slide is a pie chart. Thinking about that leader that you have in the center of your mind, where do you think they fall in terms of priority around execution, expertise, and experience, in terms of what they're looking for you to provide? So just go ahead and fill out that pie. Is it half execution? Is it a third expertise? And this is just off the top of your head, because when you work with that leader, their conversations with them will be the thing that helps you refine this picture, right? So go ahead, draw it in. How much of what do you think that leader is actually looking for?
Yeah.
Execution, expertise, or experience? How much of each? So that was the section about what your leaders need. Now we need to talk a little bit about what is it they value. Right. And we'll use Kyla as an example. Here are Kyla's assets and her challenges. She approved my sharing this, by the way. It's kind of neat on her own right. I told her, I said, I could use some other name of the impact. She said, no, they know me, I'm here. They already know you're approaching me, so it would be no reason not to say what it is anyway.
Right.
Homegrown, Oaklander, deep knowledge of the system, instructional leader, inspiration. She's a very inspiring kind of leader to hear her speak, tell her story. Personable, approachable, humble, and kind. Most of the things Oakland doesn't need right now. Right, but really, I mean, she's our best chance of a 10-year super in the history of this district, right? Her challenges, it's the only system she's ever worked in. So she has no idea what she doesn't know.
Yeah.
Right, so someone who can bring experience to other systems is hugely valuable to her, which is why she reached out to me. She's a first-time superintendent and first-time district leader at the same time. She went from principal to superintendent in what's probably the most challenging system there is, if not certainly one of them. Right. So there's a huge gap in her mental model about what the role is. And if we had done a DTR, her role would be infinitely better. Right? Because she'd be like, oh my God, there's some things I can get my arms around right away. But she basically had to listen to a cacophony of, everything is emergent and problematic and needy, and not know how to make meaning and sense of it with any kind of best practices frame. There's also 90 reports that's been written. Most of them with a lot of concurrence, but still a dozen reports. I mean, how do you make meaning out of all of that kind of nonsense? She's got budget cray-cray. She's got what amounts to an 11% encroachment. That's just going to grow over time. Which means she's got to shrink by 11% to stay the same, to be able to spend at the current levels. Right? Or grow by 11%. Yes, I should make sure that we grow first. Not so deficit-minded.
Especially in the political context.
Yes.
Of shrinking.
Exactly. She's got board cray-cray. They're doing everything from managing principals directly to partnering with charter organizations and offering buildings. I mean, yeah, anyway, it's a deal. She's got union cray-cray, which you guys already know about. Right? She's got union people who show up every day, with just all manner of bile. Colonizer. Someone called me a DeVos acolyte.
Really?
At a board meeting. Yeah, me. Wow. Because DeVos supported us in Grand Rapids. And so they saw it on our website, like, oh, well, he's a DeVos acolyte. I couldn't keep myself from laughing aloud. And then there were people in the audience who knew me who were laughing out loud too. Really? You guys don't go there. But she's got an enrollment curve. Which basically means the enrollment's either staying the same when it needs to grow or it's going down because of either charter encroachment or private school encroachment. So she's got a base that's shrinking, needs that are growing, resources that are staying the same, and a political climate that is highly volatile. And all she has with which to manage that nonsense is a homegrown girl story. Local gal made good. Interesting, right? Now, very good question. Now, homegirl made good is a powerful story in Oakland. It is a tremendously powerful story, and she's been able to leverage it to where she is now. But my guess is her time, getting lemon juice out of that lemon are short. In terms of how she mapped her influencers, half of it is really about media needs or the financial requirements of the state and managing the cray-cray related to the board. This is the one slide she would not want made public. because she doesn't want anyone to know this slice is even there. Because it's politically crazy for her to say that she's listening to charter advocates.
We need to be mindful when we share this.
Exactly.
Yeah, we're also recording this.
Yeah, I know. We're okay. Right. But that's the one that would be hugely problematic for her. She has a very strong instructional leadership team, but all the rest of the teams, either brand new or disastrous history, finance, HR, just
Low skill brand new or just brand new?
so it's a combination of low skill, brand new, and long on the tooth, ineffective. Right. And still not unmovable. So the other exercise we're going to do is you're going to identify the influencers of your leader and draw the pie there. All this is meant to do is start to, they're thinking about this for the leader. The main thing to do is to talk to them, find out, and then set the percentages that makes the most sense to them.
You had her, she drew
Right,
this.
right. We drew it together. It's part of our coaching. Right. There was an activity around doing all of that. We're not going to do that activity. So let's go ahead and talk about what all this means together. So we've talked about how district leaders and school leaders differ and how they're the same. And the entry is the place where that difference is most important. Right? So understanding that difference, shifting from general to specific as quickly as you can by knowing what they're faced with, right? Who are their schools? What are their schools' needs? All that. And there's tons of ways of knowing that, reading their plans, looking through the press, going to their websites. There are lots of ways. And of course, talking to people. Right?
Analyzing their data over the last 3
Right, looking at their data, doing the data patterns for the prior years. I did all that before sitting down with Kyla for the first time. So
Do you ever
she-
do like the disc with her? Any kind of personality?
Yeah, I haven't with any of the leaders except for Earl Watkins. We did this with all the leaders actually.
Yeah, with all his
All his entire
And the team, the leadership
Mississippi.
team,
Right.
yeah, to help
Right.
sort of them become more
Right. They
self-aware.
are, Oakland's too vulnerable right now
Yeah.
for something that's transparent.
Yeah.
And she's essentially co-superintending with the CAO, but it's not actually codified that way. So it creates huge problems for the rest of the leaders on the team.
Mm.
They're like, I have to run things to Sandra in order, to get concurrence from you. But it makes them feel underpowered. We've also prioritized knowing our leaders, understanding their reasons for partnering, whether it's execution, expertise, or experience, or what combination of those things. We've talked about their challenges and their assets. In the case of Kyla, her challenges are huge and monumental. Her assets are powerful but tight and contained, and maybe toward the end of their utility life, maybe. We have some ideas that we're going to use to kind of lengthen those. And it's by amplifying them through other people. We'll talk about that in some of those sessions.
Sorry, Derek, can you go back 1 second? Just said something about towards the end of their life. You missed the beginning of that
Yeah,
sentence.
so Kyla's assets may be at the end of its utility
Oh, gotcha. Okay, sorry.
for her, because she's now in year 3, and I don't know how much traction she'll be able to get out of homegrown made goods in light of inability to move some of the things that need to be moved for her system. Her board may be like, you know what? Maybe homegrown goods
The
is
wrong-
sufficient. We maybe need something else going forward. And then we actually map their influencers. Main reasons for knowing the influencers is to be able to talk about your advocacy in the presence of what's expected of those influencers. Charters want space, want room to run, want autonomy, want to be treated fairly. And so when she's talking about them, knowing the wants on the part of the constituency gives you the ability to play into those conversations more organically and dynamically, right? So understanding the influencers, what it is they're looking for, and having your coaching relationships in the presence of that information. And if you don't know them, ask. Kyla, what do the charters want? What are they asking of you?
And if she has a value add that they're contributing to her system, right? Because we're just authorizing charters, and we have a decline in enrollment, decline in funding. Like we're actually working against ourselves in that.
Right. And there's a constituency on her board for whom that's their frame of the work.
Yeah.
They basically think of the charter as a wolf at the door. Right. You know, and so, but that's not how she sees it. She sees them as a source to draw innovation to the system. You know, schools that incubate and are delivering for kids in ways that the district hasn't been able to, that they can learn from. And so she needs to keep, she wants to keep them close enough to be able to do those things, but not so close that the political forces feel like she cares more about them than she does the traditional schools.
Right.
So all the leaders in our systems have some version of these influencers and these sets of challenges. And so understanding them for your context, through like organic and dynamic conversations with those leaders, right? Do your own research, right, and acumen, is the best way to then sit down with folks and say, okay, you know, how can we be most useful to you?
The only thing I will add is that a lot of this, which is really good by the way, Doc, is in the DIT.
Yes, of course it is.
Laid
It's an
out,
implementation track.
laid out step by step,
Right.
And as a personal plug, like when I was promoted to a district leader, I skipped 3 steps with no support. So what's in the DIT
That's
is
just how it is.
is a lot of lessons that were learned a really, really hard way. But then we had other people from across partners that were doing district work also feed into that, right? So that DIT will actually save who you're working with from actually learning everything the hard way.
Their own way.
Yeah.
That's of course what an approach is supposed to do. It's
That's
supposed to
supposed-
short circuit, you know, needing to learn everything the hardest way.
But learning your district, doing the data analysis, how you partner with them, like it's actually in there, stepped out, right?
So when you build your support plan for district leaders, the best way to begin these conversations is with 3 questions. And you guys have heard me. Anyone who's been managed by me, these will be super familiar because it's pretty much how we started in one-on-one. How are things going? What are you working on right now? Right? What are the pain points, your big issues? And how can I help? Right? If you start with these, you will get to all the constants you need in here. 3 things that make these brilliant. First, it's about them and not about you. So if you instead come in with, hey, here's our DTR and our STR and our assessment process, and we laid it out, and you were really low on this, this, and this, and so that's clearly what we should prioritize, right? Good. So you come in like that, no. Rarely will there be a leader who will be receptive to what you've got to do. So the most important part of this, it's about him and not about you. Yeah.
So it's making me think of how we enter a space and like where are the opportunities for these kind of conversations. I'm thinking about Philly. So Philly, a lot of it was kind of William Penn
Yes.
bringing us in, just saying, oh yeah, this would be great,
Right.
but not in the Bill Hyde saying I'm seeking this kind
That's
of
right.
expertise,
That's right.
experience, or learning. More
That's right.
like I want to help these schools.
Right.
And so we're kind of missing. I mean, we have with John being able to
Exactly.
do some of those things.
Well,
but
but remember, John's a district leader in your paradigm. Right. So you actually did eventually get to these for him, but the entry was through William Penn and it's financial avenues. Right.
So it just makes me think when those kinds of opportunities come forward in the future, and it's kind of where funding agreement to go in, how do we make sure that within that entry there is still the buy-in from whoever the leader is, whether it's a superintendent or someone like a superintendent, to have that kind of conversation.
Right.
And that is of interest to them, but we are really clear about that in the pitch and funding relationship.
2 more things that make these questions the right ones. Second is that it positions us in a support frame, right? Not directive, right? Not passive. And often the answer to that last question is, I don't know. What can you do? Well, that's what I wanted you to say. You know, here are some things. Other times it's, oh my God, if I could have X, Y, Z, 1, 2, 3. And you're like, okay, sleeve, roll. Let's do it. Let's make it happen together. All hugely powerful for the credentialing you need to do and establishing the value of the organization of the partnership, right? The third thing that makes it brilliant is that the same questions are true true to our normal way of doing things, are the internal questions you can ask to internal constituencies, external constituencies. So it's double loop power, right? So I bring the answers from John, back to an EOT meeting around, as a way of supporting the work that William is trying to do with Jara, right? So there's learning in both directions, internally to the org as well as externally to the org.
Just a couple nuances. One is that, the tool, you never lead with the tool.
That's right.
I find that if they do express a need, sometimes the instinct is to jump right to the tool versus asking a few more questions. And then also framing it as an invitation versus here's something, would you like to, I've found opens the door more. Because again, they're exercising choice. You're still not,
right.
You're still, you might not be leading with the tool, but you're still shoving the tool, you're still, that can help. And sometimes it's not, without asking those couple more follow-ups to get at the nuance, it actually might not be the right tool.
Exactly.
Like we can jump to the conclusions because we're thinking through the lens of the tool, right? Exactly.
Right. Everything looks like a hammer.
Right.
Right. If you're an hammer.
Right.
So one of the ways to get beyond a lot of this nonsense or the rockiness of responsive by a funder, we're assigned to a school. That leader may or may not know you from Adam, right? And often doesn't. I mean, Jose Monzo, remember when we started there, he had, Renee in the room when he said, oh, these are your transformation partners. It's a decided thing.
Right.
And the person was like, I thought I was doing fine.
Right.
What do I need? So on and so forth. So the way to get beyond all of that is to have the right frame and posture for the relationship. So you come around to Renee right after the meeting and go, you know what? You don't have to work with us, right? I mean, we just let's have a conversation about what your needs are at your school, what it is you're working on that you're proud of, what do you think your growth edges are, and let's have a conversation about how we might help, right? Solves it all for that crowd.
Agree to the importance of us doing our homework, leveraging learning systems to know the approach and strategy so that when that answer to that third question comes, what we're doing is already super aligned to the approach.
Right.
We're not bringing out a tool necessarily, but we just know it so well. We have all these different ways to go about it.
Right.
That whatever they need, it's a match.
Last thing I'll end on, I don't know how we do on time, but probably.
One more minute, you're doing great.
Okay.
We got Cynthia there, she'll tell us.
Yeah, why did I get my watch, right?
Yeah. The only other last thing I'll add with is if you do this work right, these people see you as a resource for their entire rest of their careers.
Yeah.
Right. There's a half dozen super who I'm in dynamic conversations with about the stuff they're up to now and with some thought partnership around. That's the language we use, some thought partnership around some key things. And so opportunities present themselves. They're like, oh my God, we just got this grant from so-and-so, such and such. Is there any chance you can 1, 2, 3, or ABC? Keynote opportunities all the time. Hey, we're having all our teachers together on this particular day. Can you come and do that one piece you did really well about equity-driven reform? I mean, those things, you become a natural resource to help them execute against their own set of goals, right? And to me, it builds not just more business going forward, but it builds a sense of collegial responsibility toward a stronger public education system for poor kids of color. When you are not alone in the expectation of actually delivering this work going forward, both from us as individuals and from them as leaders. Jose Monzo is a great example. Wherever he goes, right, he's doing this work and calling on us to help him get better and better at executing. The same thing is going to be true for John, right? John, and he's taken over another set of schools that are high school, if I'm correct.
No, all K-8s.
All
in the
K-8s.
Northeast, where there's huge equity challenges.
Right.
Columns.
Right. So when you nail this right, where the outcomes are theirs, where you've helped them be transparent about their learning edges, and they've seen some professional growth and development because of the association, right, with you, individually and organizationally. There's no better, right? There's no better thing for the organization in terms of our business.
Sure.
Than that.
Why would they search for a different and a new organization?
Right.
They only have so much energy, right?
Right.
Like start from scratch.
Right. Any questions before we go? Last thoughts? Perspectives?
Yeah, thank you.
Do you like anything I have for the will? Did I miss anything?
The only thing that it raises for me is that because of the relational nature of the business development of partners, thinking about scale and thinking about entering new markets, there may be relationships there to build off of, there may not, but it's sort of like what you were talking about on the marketing. How do we capture the secret sauce and the nuance and the sort of authenticity of what Partners does in materials, right? In other collateral that's not based upon an
Places
engagement
where our
with
bodies
you
are
or engagement with you and the pre-existing relationship. That's a good essential question.
Jesse.
Yeah, when you sparked with that, that's actually interesting. 'Cause we are seeing with Stella a lot in this as an example. Someone going somewhere else wanting us to come and who has some challenges in the way that they, around the constituencies, the way they work, and the way that just don't have answers to, but the ways that marketing materials could actually tee up the right conversations to have with people up front, so that they get not only the impact of the work, but kind of the arc of the work too, so that there's a little bit of a, you're not starting to have a conversation, like they almost expect the conversation before it even happens because of what their exposure is.
Of course, I'm riffing off of your idea, but
I love it.
you guys made me think. I tweeted a couple days ago. It's a white guy from PBS, and he's interviewing a white woman, and she explains the history of racism in this country and how oppressive forces work in 2 minutes and 50 seconds.
Wow.
With really big buckets, right? And I was like, wouldn't this be cool if this was on our websites? Right? Because it's our why.
Because it focuses the next conversation. Right.
Yeah.
It's a bunch of stuff you don't have to do now.
Yeah.
Right.
It moves the ball down the field.
Exactly.
The marketing materials could be designed to open a conversation instead of sell a product.
Yeah.
Introduce some dissonance, introduce some, recognize that you have that rash, on here that you're pretending through pretense and posturing that you got everything under control, and yet let's get real.
Yeah.
Anti-marketing marketing. Almost.
Alex, party words, thoughts, me.
I'm looking forward to meeting with Cynthia on Friday to talk about all of this in our first one-on-one. So it's a lot, but I'm excited. Yeah, super helpful.
It's gonna be fun. I'm excited.
Yeah, I could have done that. I just couldn't. He was on vacation, so I couldn't get his concurrence while he was on vacation. But I have the same amount of information, the same documents, and all our coaching notes related to him. But a lot of them were similar. First-time super, although he had district roles before. The kind of homeboy made good. Instead of there's the Tia Thayer, young innovator, with a proven track record, coming to execute in a place of deep challenge kind of picture. One of the key differences between is Oakland's funder community is still very robust and supportive of the super pilot, and that's not the case with Contra's funding community, and so that's a pain point for him, right? And so helping to kind of resolve that would be hugely powerful, for Matt going forward.
For the 3 E's, like what would you say that called?
For Matt, execution, and with probably all 3, and probably in good, just about equal quotients at the start. But right now, I would say the expertise is shrinking, and the execution is growing. Yeah. Right. And over the life of a partnership, that's kind of what happens. They now know enough, having worked with us and been STR'd repeatedly and DTR'd repeatedly, to kind of get a sense of where their gaps are and what can be done about it. What they need now is actually help getting it done.
That's what I drew from.
Yeah.
Less experience, more of the other stuff. And then the question for me is, if he's about to go into retirement and he's seated the assistant soup, we need to know what his values are.
Precisely. And his
We don't
influencers,
know.
which we have no idea.
We don't
Correct.
know.
We have no
Yeah.
idea.
So that's the strategy there.
Okay.
Thank you, Derek.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, hope it's helpful.
So we'll have some cake, 2:30,
Yes.
you'll go to your next group.
Who's in this room?
Alex.
I think I am, yeah.
Oh.
I'm gonna